Today we're going to show you a little bit about creating scores within a self-authored assessment. You start by going to Authoring and clicking on Assessments. In the case of a new assessment, you would click on create your items, set up all of that information. I think the best way to show scores is by example. So I'm going to open an existing test. There are some other videos in our catalog about building questions. The only thing that I'll show in here that I think is important about questions is making sure that you have some semblance of scoring of correctness and item weight or point value set up. So this is a question: which of the following is not part of a standard SQL query? We have some options, and in this column here we've established a correct answer. That's very important to scoring a cognitive ability test, and a point value here which gives it a total points for scoring. If using a Likert or matrix-based item, they may have point values and no correctness, which is a standard way to set up a personality instrument. So as a baseline, I have those inside of my questions. Now, on the Scores tab, which is one to the right of questions, I have the ability to set up scoring. On the left-hand side, you can see all of the different score types, and we'll focus on the ones in the top part here. So total points is the most common score. Here's an example of total points. You create a score by clicking or dragging that item in. Really, the center pane is just used to say, what do you want to name the score? Do you want any rounding? Where do you want it visible as part of data exports, or does the candidate see it on a results page? The brains is set up a lot of times over here on the right-hand side. In my total points, I've set up section 3 and section 1 to be included in that. But I could just blanket all statements or all questions to be included in scoring. And then I could round that to the nearest tenth of a number. There are different rounding options such as banker's rounding and truncation. That's a very common example of total point scoring, and I have a couple set up. So in this one, it's just section 1, and in this one, it's just section 3. Another common example is to use our pass-fail conditional score. So say you sum up those total points into a raw score, and then you say, I want to set up a condition. If this happens, I want this to happen. So in here, I have some conditions. If raw score is greater than or equal to 50, give them a pass. If raw score is greater than or equal to 24, give them a reservation, and everything else is a fail. You can actually set these up with mathematical between 24 and 50 and things like that, but it evaluates everything top down. So if the first condition is met, it'll mark that. If the second condition is met, so I can't meet 24 without hitting, I can't hit 50 without hitting 24 first, so we'll put that at the top. So that's an example of a conditional score, extremely common. Then there's, for the mathematicians out there, the formula score. I want to create a complex formula based on weighting and some other information. I can do that by clicking on the formula score. There's a little wrench you click on here to set up formulas. I chose my raw score, which is a score variable. We list all these out. All you have to do is click on one to make it appear in your formula box. I have some operators, greater than, less than. I can set all of that up. Not greater than, less than, but multiplication and division, some mathematical functions like square root, in, if, norms inverse, things like that. And I can also set up answer variables. This is a little less common, but if I want to say, did they select B for radio option question 2, you can set that up as an option as well. So I've set this up to say the square of the raw score to be my score. And I can round it, I cannot round it. I'll just round it to the 2 decimal places here. So probably the last thing that comes up a lot, and there are other scores up here like ranking scores and theta and invalid responses and incorrect questions and things like that. But I've set up a percentile lookup, extremely common. So you base it on a score, a raw score or something like that, and you set up. If they scored between 90 and 99 on that raw score, they get a 95 all the way down. So you can set up really nice norm tables or percentile lookups. And when you're setting up scores, another advantage you have is this little helpful hint up here, suggestions, and it might tell me if I've done something wrong. In this case, percentile lookup's not associated to a score. That's a problem. We said we wanted our percentile lookup to be based on a score, so I can choose which one. If raw score is between 90 and 99, that's my result. So that's the way you'd set up a percentile lookup. I've done something else potentially wrong. Percentile lookup has bands that don't overlap. So this is more a protection. That's why it's a suggestion and not a validation defect. I could have a value that's 89.5, and there is no value for that. So I would need to make sure my raw score is rounded to a whole number so that does not happen. So I'll go ahead and round this to a whole number to make that work out fine. So each of these scores have their own particular nuances. You think about the center pane, once again, is that place where you can manipulate. The right-hand pane is the place that you format. So there's scores are added maybe quarterly or every 4 to 6 months. So keep an eye on what's new out there. But that's a basic overview of setting up scoring for your assessment.